Hello, everybody, and welcome to another conversation in our series on why Black Lives Matter. Today, we are looking into the topic of truly honoring people of color. And so, I think one of the things that has come up in recent weeks is just a couple of unveiling of statues in honor of emancipated slaves. I also know that there's in, I think it's the UK, where a statue of George Floyd was also unveiled. I just want to kind of open it up to the team and just get their sense of how they feel about what's happening right now in terms of honoring people of color, and if that's enough or not, or if more needs to happen in this space. So I'm going to open it up to the team, and we will just allow the conversation to flow. Thank you.
So for me, like from my observations, there seems to have like three different kind of preparation in the minds of people. And like the first one that you talked about is more like symbolic, official and unofficial statues of people, like national days of commemoration of different communities. I think there is a second one where it's, how should I say this? Where it's like people asking for like monetary reparation for the damage, I'd say, of history on their ethnic groups. For example, people asking for reparation for genocide, people asking for national reparation and financial compensation for slavery. And so I think like the distinction between the two is like the symbolic one, it's like good, it's positive, it mirrors a better image of society where like the history of like everyone is acknowledged and not just the history of white people in white societies, or not the history of a majority versus the minorities. And like the second one is more like, I think it's hard to quantify like what could be a financial reparation. So I think this question is a little bit more tricky and complex. And there seems to have like this third category where people, as we've discussed in the chat, people seem to want to make it up to the minorities that are living today, and for their life to be easier. It could be good, but I think sometimes there is a confusion on what is truly helping people. And for example, the article that we saw that Kanisha sent was about a white student asking his professor of MIT, I think, whatever, from a really like prestigious college, to grade the papers of Black students like with more, I'd say, grace, a little bit more ease, to be like softer on them. And I remember a discussion with Anastasia, who's my coach, and her twin flame Ray, and we were saying that it's important in your relationship to people to not weaken them, not rob them of their power. And so for me, like this third category is sometimes a category where we see like white people saying how to be less white, or how can I make it up to Black people for my guilt? And this is actually not really a reparation, and it could be, for me, detrimental because it's like a misuse of what we could do, of our power to change things. So I don't know how you guys see, if you have like any other categories, or if it's like what you could see, like the complexity of reparations, but that's my opinion on this.
Deji, how do you feel about what's happening in terms of like these statues and those kind of things? And then we'll delve into what Yorime shared and what that sense of reparation actually is.
Well, I feel that a lot of things are starting to be acknowledged, if that makes sense. There's some acknowledgement happening with the statues being removed and replaced and revealed in that transition. And also, it's like that consciousness of avoidance has just completely deteriorated to a fault, because one thing that, I don't know if you guys know about this, a couple of the statues that have been revealed have been vandalized. So a couple of the statues got vandalized. There was one instance, I don't know how many vandalizations there have been so far. One George Floyd mural was vandalized saying "White Lives Matter," something like that. And then there was one that happened here in New York. There was a statue that got revealed a couple of days ago, and it was recently vandalized. And what came up for me was that a lot of is that how can I say this? Is that society was still avoiding the whole systemic logic of what is currently happening. However, as I healed that, the statue that got vandalized here in New York, NYPD hate crimes got video surveillance of the person who did it. So that was a big help, because, you know, with the last vandalizations that have happened with the statues and murals that have come up, no one knew who did it. It was just, oh, this happened. Does anyone know who did it? No. But this time, it feels good that the person who did vandalize the one here in New York is on tape. His face is all over the internet. He's gonna be revealed at this point. But that's what feels good about it, is the acknowledgement and the riddance of avoidance. That's about it.
And like my question would then be like, when those things came up for either of you, just in terms of feeling into it, when something that's meant to historically, that's meant to honor people of color is defaced, what feeling does that bring up for either one of you?
Can you repeat the beginning of your question?
So when something that's meant to honor people of color in one way or another gets defaced or damaged or dishonored in that way, what feeling does that bring up for you?
Well, I'd say honoring people of color, like all the things that have happened in this year, like national holidays and statues. It was like such a good start, such a step forward. And we know like there's still like some work left, but sometimes when these things happens, like when statues are vandalized, it feels like the part of society is still not ready to accept these steps forward. And it feels like we're dragging them a little bit behind us. It's like this heavy feeling of having to wait for people to accept that our society is changing.
And when you feel into that, like for you, what does it personally feel like? Sorry.
It feels tiring. I guess it feels a little bit like anger.
What is that anger pointing to? Can you see that part of yourself that's kind of harboring a little bit of anger right now? And what does she feel? What does she feel she needs to be loved right now?
So she needs, I'd say she needs connection and compassion.
Can you go ahead and just give her that connection and compassion right now? And as you give her permission to receive that connection and compassion, are there any other feelings coming up?
Yeah, she still feels a bit weary, I guess.
What is the weariness about? Is weariness related to tiredness or more guardedness?
Tiredness of seeing people's crap, I guess.
Tiredness of?
Of seeing people's crap.
And is there a part of her that maybe feels responsible for creating change faster than what she's seeing in society? And could that be what is fueling the feeling of tiredness right now?
Yeah, for sure.
So can you allow her just to release the responsibility to God?
Yes.
And can you allow her to accept that she's not responsible for changing other people? She may contribute to the change in society through her healing, but she's not responsible for changing other people and their views and their opinions and their attitudes and their behavior. Can you just allow her to be off the hook for all of those things?
Yeah.
And as you allow her to release that responsibility, how does she feel now?
Much better. Like she can rest.
Yes, she can absolutely rest in God.
Mm-hmm.
And she can give herself permission to allow God to reveal the change to her. Is her God powerful?
Yeah.
Is a God capable of changing these things and able to change things?
Yeah.
And does her God need her to expend energy where his energy is already flowing?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Feels better. More in order.
And as that sense of order settles in a little bit more, are there any other feelings that are coming up right now?
No, it feels very peaceful.
Would you like to allow her just to come back into the space of your heart and just settle in there and allow her healing to just ground in and allow it to feed the peace that's there?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And and the thing that you mentioned, that like as we just before we went through the healing process, was like, for me, it also it kind of brought up this feeling of like sadness that people refuse to accept the newness and the change. And so like when I felt into it, it was just like, well, how daft can you be? How much more do you need to hold on to shit? And it's like, okay, but I'm also not responsible for them to change that for them. The people who actually want to change it will change it along with me. It will reflect in my reality. But again, it's what you were talking about in terms of that energy of feeling like we're dragging people along. And that dragging feels like forcefulness, actually, like forcing our healing and our change on other people. And like when I felt into that, it's just like it kind of feels significantly inappropriate. And it also feels like a significant energy leak to expend energy in that way. And that's kind of why I was like, well, actually, it's quite easy then to feel into it and kind of release it quite easily, because it's not actually my piece to carry. Like, I'm doing my piece, and the rest is up to God. Like, God called me to do my piece of healing and share my piece of healing. But kind of that's where my responsibility in the process ends until the next piece of healing comes up, kind of thing. So like having said that, I just want to like check in with you, both of you. Like, how does that feel now in relation to feeling like you're responsible for shifting the bar or shifting the needle, or kind of even just pushing people along the road a little bit faster?
I'm not sure what you mean.
So just the, that energy of kind of dragging people along, and that energy of being responsible for the change. How do you feel about it?
Like, okay, let me make sure I'm comprehending what you're saying. Okay, so you said, how do I feel about being part of the change? It's a good feeling, but you said, how do I feel about forcing people? Is that what you said?
Yeah. So like, do you feel responsible for encouraging the change, or do you just feel responsible for bringing your part to the change?
I feel responsible for bringing my part to the change.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just checking in, because I think
Oh,
that's something that we need to also at a deeper level start to release, that energy of responsibility, and on a level almost that energy of control. Like, we don't have control over what people do. We only have control over how we heal in the space of what is reflected to us.
Yeah, yeah, when you talked and when we were healing, I realized like how misplaced I felt my responsibility was also. Like, it's like realizing that it's not because you have like a lot of responsibilities that your responsibility extend to pushing people or being responsible for other people. And I think it's quite easy to forget that there is God, and God is responsible for everyone, and you just have to do your part. And yeah, change comes through peace, not force. So, and yeah, yeah, what I felt like I felt a sense of responsibility, because I felt like if people were resisting the natural change, when it was not natural, it was not okay, it was not complete. But it's not, um, I'm not in control of that, I guess.
Yeah, good. Thank you. So the other piece that you touched on that I thought was also quite important for us to kind of to delve into more was around the sense of reparation and kind of making amends, that kind of thing. And one of the things that I like from the history of South Africa was that at the time when our democracy was formed more, was that there was the establishment of what was called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And it was just, it was literally kind of a tribunal, and people came to share their stories in terms of what had happened during the segregation years and what was taken from them and that kind of thing. But like, and like feeling into that space of reparation, like, when you said like, how do we quantify this? Like, what, when is enough enough, or what is enough in terms of reparation? And it's a very interesting question to ask, because what is it that can be done to actually appease such a significant history of oppression and hurt and pain and violence and abuse and that kind of thing. And so yeah, like, you know, when I feel into that question, I feel like it's such a vast thing, because everybody's sense of reparation is going to be different. And for some people, it might be financial. For other people, it's probably going to be a significant amount of personal healing because of the fact that there was family ties that were broken, there was homes that were broken, there was whole communities that were broken. And like, you know, like how does that reparation look in society? And what does it achieve? You know, like, because you know, like we have this sense, and I've had the sense in my life as well, you know, throw money at the problem. But in this space, you can't really just throw money at the problem. Because like, what is that? How much is that? What does it extend to? Like with South Africa, we've had provinces renamed, we've had roads renamed, we've had buildings renamed. And it doesn't really shift the underlying pain. It starts to make people of color and their history more visible, which possibly gives a greater sense of belonging. But I'm not certain that it necessarily alleviates the core of the pain and the core of the hurt.
Yeah, as you said, like, it's pretty hard to quantify. I guess like my question comes from the fact that France has been a colonial empire for a long time. And so like the further away the incidents and tortures were from the industrial era, the more it's going to be difficult to monetize them, even though they are all difficult to monetize. For example, like how do you monetize like 400 years of slavery in the French Caribbean? There's just how do you monetize like Algerians having to immigrate to French soil during their independence war and losing everything? And former Vietnam, how do you monetize like families that were, that were broken, as you said, like orphans and people who lost their jobs massively? And so like all of them have like different levels of complexity, but like when you were talking, I felt like same as what we were saying about responsibility earlier. I think the spiritual component will have to play a big part here, because the way to really alleviate like the errors of the past would be to atone, basically, and to rebalance our karma. But like, yeah, it's impossible to do without the notions of you are an eternal being, and you have karma and dharma, and something is healed from inside first. And so I'd say that as monetization has been like, it can be tricky. It has been in the midst of debates and arguments and fightings between like ethnic groups, at least in France. So I'd say this is not the core of what preparation truly is. And it needs to be shifted to something more spiritual. Yeah, but then again, and I say it's like this time peacefully, how do you get the population to understand that even now, even then, like healing comes from the inner world first.
Yeah, also, I also have the sense that, and I think it's what Deji was speaking to around the systemic racism. And I feel like the reparation might actually sit in that space. It's in kind of remaking the systems in society so that they aren't favorable to some versus others, or more favorable to some versus others. And so, like, my sense is, I agree with you that there's a very significant spiritual component, but there's also a very physical component of starting to truly change systems and starting to truly uplift communities. And it literally, it's like, for me, with South Africa, like I'm speaking to what we have as rural versus urban areas, where the rural areas are significantly underdeveloped. And so it's that kind of thing that I think needs to feed the desire for reparation in terms of uplifting those rural areas, as opposed to the compensation and the reparation on a monetary scale. Because for me, it's like, you can't quantify a person's pain, but if you quantify a shift for an entire community in terms of services, in terms of amenities, in terms of infrastructure, that stuff for me starts to shift the sense that they are no longer the have-nots. So, like, yeah, like, I want to kind of get your, like, both of your sense of, maybe that is something that starts to feel more appropriate than the sense of reparation, but we can't quantify reparation.
I quite like the idea that preparation would not be scaled on like history and like unmeasurable situations, but actually on what would this community need for the natural balance of society to be had. I really like that. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. How do you feel about it, Teji?
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm gonna need you to reiterate your question again, Granville. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought.
So yeah, so my sense is that we can't necessarily quantify somebody's pain, so we don't know what reparation is at an individual level. But at a community level, if we shift, if we uplift a whole community in terms of service delivery, in terms of access to services, in terms of moving them out of the have-not bucket, does that feel like something that is a healthier way of shifting towards what we would term reparation?
Uh, it's again what I brought up earlier. There's going to have to be some acknowledgement and no more avoidance before that happens, because it can't just be an instant thing. There has to be some acknowledgement, especially when it came to what you spoke about with the rural areas. Is that what you said? Yeah, it's there's gonna have to be there needs to be a conversation. There needs to be a lot of things, but it's not gonna when it comes to what you brought up with it being a community act and acts of service. Yes, absolutely. But there's gonna be something need to be done before that. It can't just be no, because again that's bringing up the consciousness of avoidance. That doesn't feel good.
Okay, so what in your mind are those things? Like, because like it speaks to like almost conversing but connecting on a deeper level.
Yeah.
But again, like what are those things? Like let's call in some tangible things.
Acknowledge a society's way of life, acknowledge past actions, acknowledge um acknowledge pain. It's too many to name. It's a lot. I like that's why I said like if there's a lot of layers that needs to be acknowledged before getting to a place of acts of service and community uplift.
No, I get that, and I agree with you. I like, and I think like Urine and I possibly placed it very much in that spiritual container, and that's what I'm saying. Let's actually name it. Let's call it what it is, because then we, in this conversation, also heal the avoidance. Because if the avoidance is kind of the core challenge, then we shouldn't shy away from saying, well, actually, these are some of the things that you need to stop avoiding. These are some of the things that you need to actually get to the core of. And so, again, it's if we don't call it, we're still avoiding, we're just fueling the energy of avoidance.
Exactly. And again, especially when it comes to rural areas, the places of Jim Crow laws that were happening during a time of segregation and things like that.
What's Jim Crow laws?
Wait, you're not okay. Okay, Yureen, do you know what Jim Crow is? Okay, so how do I explain this? All right. So Jim Crow laws were laws that were brought into place after the slaves were freed. Even though slaves were freed and able to, do no, I'm not going to say that. That when they were able to have some sort of extent of living as a human being, Jim Crow laws were set in southern rural areas in the US. And during that time, a lot of African Americans were fleeing the southern areas to get away from that lifestyle. So, like for example, my grandparents on my mother's side were born in South Carolina. They left and came to New York in like the 1960s. Yeah. So that was during that time is when Jim Crow was still a thing.
Yeah, basically these were these were the laws that enabled segregation. Like,
yeah, it was pretty much segregation set to still again avoid what African Americans were set against during that time. They weren't allowed to use the same fountains as African Americans. They weren't allowed to go to the same schools. They weren't allowed to sit in front of the bus. They can only sit in back of the bus. Uh, oh my God. It was a lot. It was some bullshit. I'll say that. But yeah, it was a lot.
So yeah, and so one of the things that kind of, because segregation is literally about separation, right? It's literally fueling separation. So like on a level, it feels like the energy of avoidance was just fueled through that energy of segregation and separation.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
question
and I think that's where a lot of African Americans are still in place of, especially in like the southern areas. They're so stuck on a place of like, oh, okay, well, I should be happy that I did this. I should be happy that I just have this right here, and not exactly wanting more for themselves. Because a lot of people were so, I can say some African Americans are still in the place where they're kind of scared to claim what's theirs, what's rightfully theirs. Yeah.
I think my question is related to that. Like, in a sense, today we are acknowledging more and more this history and this pain, like through civil rights movement, through Supreme Court justice, through Juneteenth being a national day, for example. And so,
yeah,
like, where is the limit between like there is enough acknowledgement for us to move forward to change society, and we are just waiting and actually avoiding change? Because you also said that, and I see that in the French Caribbean as well, people are so stuck on the pain of things that happen that they use these.
it's a place of lack.
Yeah, and they kind of use this as examples to kind of paint all of their realities. Like, for example, like the vaccine. A lot of people that are against is for reasons that they think that it would be, they are targeted at their core. And so it's like waking up this victim consciousness that prevent us to move forward on a regional level to a more healthy state, to a more wealthy state, peaceful, basically, state. So, yeah, I agree that like there is this part where there's always a work of acknowledgement of deconstruction, like, can you say that? Like deconstruction of the mind, the bad habits of people. But there is also a time, at the same time, it's like the steps of the twin flames journey that don't happen like one after the other. It feels like they more happen like in relationship to the other. So like there would be a day where there is like time for acknowledgement and a day where there's time for action, and both are relevant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like it's that like there isn't really a sequential flow. There isn't a chronological flow to these things. So it's literally pieces on a chessboard all being moved in different directions, but kind of needing to be moved in concert, like in union, like not one, then the other, like a couple of things all at the same time. I think that's the energy I was kind of feeling into, is that energy that fuels this kind of feeling of being other than. And so that other than is fueling the separation, it's fueling the inability to relate to other people, and therefore fueling the avoidance. Because again, you know, like we're not encouraging people to relate inside of the complaint, but at the same time, people are relatable. We understand people. We understand what struggle has felt like. I don't think there's a single human being who hasn't had a sense of what struggle is. They may not have had the sense of the extent of the struggle because their realities may be different, their opportunities may be different. The fact is that acknowledge that there's been a struggle, and the struggle wasn't for liberation. The struggle was now to reestablish and reconnect with life and reconnect with society. And I think that is the thing that's kind of, for me, at the core of it, is it's that reconnection within society that kind of is still a little bit wonky. Like there's the whole individualization of so many things doesn't necessarily encourage connection.
You touched on something really important, like consciousness in its globality needs to accept that each of us are part of the society and we're not outside of it. And so you talked about individualizations, but for Black communities around the world, this could look like let's build a nation that is totally outside of the world, so that we, for example, like we won't suffer ever again. And so feeling like when you're in a society with other communities, you are naturally going to suffer because there is a part of you that is refusing that you are in it. But you don't need to be out of it to be powerful and to be joyful. And so it's not the idea of a desire. In a sense, it's not really the desire of having a nation of our own that is the problem. It's like the upset behind it that we won't be happy living until we are separated. And so when we are separating, we are choosing death. So we won't ever live, we won't ever truly live.
Yeah, you know, and you know, like it leads into the next piece, because we are not designed to be isolated. And so one of the things that was used as punishment in the past was to ostracize people from tribes and groups and things like that. The forced separation was the punishment. Whereas human beings are by nature pack animals. We're by nature herd animals. We are by nature tribed animals. we move in tribes. And so one of the things historically was that a lot of tribal culture was inculcated into people. And if you went against the tribe, you were ostracized, you were separated, and that kind of thing. And that was the punishment. And so, like this, the sense of separation, of being other than other people, is again a construct. It's a human construct. But at the core of it, humans are not designed in that way. Humans are designed to seek connection. Humans are designed to seek the village. Humans are designed to move with the village. And so this individualization of things is just another thing that kind of fuels the illusion of separation, which doesn't necessarily exist, because at the core of it, we are all so connected. It's impossible for us to be in this time and space and not be connected. It might be a significantly vast distance, but look at us. We've got a person in the States, we've got a person in Africa, we've got a person in Europe, all in one call. We are so connected. And I think that's kind of the thing that we need to always kind of feel back into and feed back into consciousness as well.
Feels very nurturing. Yeah, it could be like an affirmation, like that I accept myself as a part of consciousness.
Yeah, because the fact of the matter is there's going to be a collective consciousness, regardless of whether people plug into and acknowledge it or not. It's there. They are plugged in regardless. It's one of the things that allows your reality to vibrate in alignment with your actual personal vibration. It's literally that like scientifically it would be what would be called force fields that spin towards each other and attract each other.
For sure. Yeah, because I'm even noticing on a deeper level how even my friends are going through the same things as me on some level. It's kind of funny, and goes back to a thought that I have, that if you don't see yourself as part of a collective, you basically don't really see yourself. And yeah, I think the more people are going to integrate that thought into them, the more healing and change could be done. It could be easier.
Amen. And you know, like one of the things that like when you say it, your friends are going through similar things as you, it's just, you know, it's again like I've always been told, like your friends your friends level up with you. The ones that don't vibrate out of your reality. And so the ones that are connected to you in love will vibrate up with you. They will level up with you as you level up. They will, their journey and their experience might not look exactly the same, but at the core, there's very similar lessons, because again, it's moving as a herd. It's literally even with the vaccination talk. Like you can't achieve herd immunity if there's no concept of a herd. Like every single person is not vaccinated, and it's going to take a while for 7 billion people to be vaccinated. But the more people that are vaccinated, the more there's herd immunity. It's just how connected we are with each other. And maybe that's the thing to honor here. Just honor that there's actually a deeper connection, and that is what's going to shift the reality that we want to see in our lives.
Funny, because I began my healing by saying I needed connection. I didn't know why I said it, but I said it. Yeah, it's very beautiful.
Awesome.
It's good to me.
Very cool. How are you guys feeling? I'm feeling pretty complete in this space today.
Yeah, me too.
Good. So thank you everybody for the conversation today, and thank you to everybody that's followed us in our conversation series on why Black Lives Matter. We'd like to invite you to like and subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel, where you will find all our previous conversations and also all other conversations that have taken place in our Unionism Spiritual Discussion group on Facebook. And we look forward to seeing all of you next week. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.